Half-open centres, semi-open centres are very common and invariably lead to imbalance and complex games, which of course is why they're very popular with players at all levels who want to play for the win, both with white and with black. Let's just take a look at another game now between Grandmaster John Fedorowicz playing white and Sofia Polgar playing with black. And this is an interesting example of a Sicilian defence which was played in Vaikensee in 1990. Well, Fedorowicz is white and he plays the main line of the Sicilian with d4. Black takes, white recaptures, and we quickly see this half-open centre developing, semi-open centre, with white having a forward pawn on e4 against black's Sicilian pawn structure with backward pawns on d6 and e6. It's a feature of many Sicilian positions that black gets to have an extra central pawn in the opening. This can be a big advantage as the game develops, but white, by actively developing his pieces, has got to prove that activity is worth more than this asset of the extra central pawns. Black can use these pawns to advance a bit later on. She's looking for d5, she's maybe looking for e5. All this is in the future. These moves have got to be very well timed. And so white moves right along with the Keres attack, g4, which is one of the most fearsome weapons against the Scandinavian. White menaces g5, gaining space, pushing black back, driving black passive. So Polgar plays h6, which is one of the main lines. Basically, by playing h6, black is slowing white's attack down. White gets on with it, and as he still can't play g5, well, he can, but then he would have to take back with the bishop. With rook g1, Fedorowicz announces, I want to take back with the pawn on g5. So black plays a kind of careless move here, like bishop e7. White just moves right along with g5, and this is a very dangerous position for black, as after only a few moves, white is getting ready to ram that pawn all the way right down black's throat, and I wouldn't like to be black here. So Polgar, of course, knows all this and stops the white initiative with h5. White is happy to open up lines on the king side with g takes h5, knight takes h5, and continue the pursuit of the initiative by playing bishop g5. So note, by energetic play, white is not giving his opponent any chance to relieve her position by pushing those central pawns up, liberating the black bishops. Queen to b6. Well, on the face of it, that is a very logical move, because black puts a double hit on the knight at d4 and the pawn at b2, forcing the knight back to a more passive square. I mean, I don't think white wants to take on c6 in this position. All that does is strengthen black's centre, and black may be able to take on b2 anyway. So knight b3 was played. Polgar plays the traditional Sicilian move a6. White goes bishop e2, again a tempo move, attacking the knight, and after knight f6, pawn up to h5. I must say, this is the type of energy that you need when playing against the black formation. White's threat is h6, which would take advantage of the unprotected knight on f6. And I think here Sofia plays an imprecision. She ignores white's move and plays queen c7. Now that is quite normal in the Sicilian defence, the queen on c7. In this case, black's making room for b5. But does she have the time needed to get b5 in at the right moment? I don't think she does. I think black would have been much better advised just to secure the position by going knight d7, taking the sting out of h6. Because let's see what happens. Black plays queen c7, on with the pawn. That pawn could have been a liability. It could have been a weakness. Instead, Fedorowicz transforms it into a strength, and the black knight has now got to cut a sorry figure on h7 to defend the position. Well, I suppose black could play knight d7 here, but after takes, it's starting to look very dangerous. That white rook on g1 looks very meaningful. Black's got a weak pawn at d6. I gain the impression this is not at all an easy position for black to defend. So black goes knight h7, which is not the greatest square in the world. White takes on g7, exposing the bishop. White's bishop comes back. Now the bishop is attacked on g7. Bishop comes to f6, and now the sensible queen d2. White's got plenty of time at his disposal. He's managed to encourage black to misplace her pieces. He's got various targets to aim at. The poor black knight on h7, the backward central pawn, which black has not been able to dissolve. And so Fedorowicz's next couple of moves are very easy, just completing development in the easiest possible way by castling on the queen side. And black must now defend that pawn on d6. So Sofia drops back with bishop e7. Now comes a pin, easy chess. Black unpins by castling, knight to a4. So you can see the guy with the forward central pawn, he hasn't been troubled. The pawn has not come under fire. Black has still got this retarded centre, which means she can't really do very much with her bishops. And white has now found a suitable target to aim at, the b6 square. And there's an immediate threat of bishop b6. Fedorowicz in this game displaying the necessary energy to develop a nice attack. Rook dg8. At least this way black gets to occupy an open file. Is that file relevant? We will see, as Fedorowicz puts his knight in, giving a check, and then pushes forward with f4. I think in this position, if I'm not mistaken, knight c4 was also pretty strong. But f4 looks good. Bishop drops back to e8 out of harm's way, and white just plays a3, a typical restricting move. With nothing absolutely clear on the horizon, Fedorowicz just strengthens his position slightly. Knight comes to f6, attacking the pawn. Bishop defends, and now black breathes a slight sigh of relief by exchanging a pair of rooks. Bishop takes h1. How many of us would mechanically have taken on h1 with the rook? Fedorowicz sees further. He takes with the bishop. He wants to keep that rook on d1 in an active location. So knight to a7. Knight comes up to a5. Very menacing. Black goes knight d7, again seeking exchanges. White builds up the pressure by playing queen f2. Now there's an immediate winning threat of taking on d7 and then taking on a7, which explains the blocking move knight c5. White goes knight ac4. As you can see, black is being held very tightly here. Difficult for her to do anything. And now comes virtually the winning move here, e5. Undermining black's central formation and initiating winning tactics. Polgar took on h1. Fedorowicz took on c5. Very difficult. White is just setting up a bind on black's position. Eventually he hopes to get his rook down to d7, which is why Polgar chooses d5 here. And now bishop d6. Forcing the exchange, he takes d6, queen d8, and now knight to e5. A crushing finale, as white ends up with numerous threats, and black can't really find the time to save her bishop without losing decisive amounts of material. So black eventually got d5 in, but she couldn't get it in at the right moment. The conclusion can be drawn that if you've got the backward central pawn in this semi-open type of game, this half-open central position, you've got to look to free yourself, or you can end up in the passive situation which Polgar found herself in, just giving the initiative to a strong player is like suicide in a game of chess.